Thank you very much for inviting me back here again. Let's open with prayer. Almighty God in heaven, we thank you again for good friends and good fellowship. And we ask that you'll be with us now by the presence of your Holy Spirit. Even unto the end. In Jesus' name, amen. So last time I was with you, I think it was mid-February. And I was still teaching November 5th. Then I think in March, I stopped teaching November 5th. So I was asked to come back today and just go through what happened. Okay, so I had probably I had two pieces of evidence which I thought made November 5th very strong. The strongest was on November 5th, the general public were all doing something. They were voting. And so I said, that's the mark of the beast test, how you vote. The general public weren't doing anything on July 18th. Or December 17 or January 20. So my strongest argument was, how do you get the mark of the beast on July 18 or the other dates? How do you get the mark of the beast on July 18? Or any other date? Then in February, Elder Terry was presenting in France. And she said that she's going to move the mark of the beast test from the Sunday Law waymark to the loud cry waymark. So that knocks out my main, strongest evidence. We had always taught the mark of the beast test is here. Elder Jeff used to say, you can't develop your character in a crisis. You develop your character here. And then the Sunday Law is just like a pregnancy test, he used to say. It just reveals what you've been doing back here. And he also used to say it's like a litmus test.
Litmus, I don't know how to translate.
That's okay. Elder Parminder used to teach. The mark of the beast test is here. He used to say, it's all done and dusted by Sunday law. It's all over by Sunday. Talking about your character development. And he taught it as recently as
you can continue.
he taught it as recently as 13 months before Elder Terry moved it. Does that make sense? So Elder Terry moved it in February 2024. No, February 2025, sorry. But if you go to January 2024, Elder Parminder speaking in Germany, part 2, starting around about 1 hour 15 minutes. He's presenting this subject. And he's using the quote in 5 Testimonies. And he's insisting that the seal and the mark is here. Curtis is actually in the audience. Curtis is saying, I think it's further down here. Maybe. Curtis thinks, in the audience, Curtis is saying, I think it's further down here. And Elder Parminder says, no, it's here. So moving the test is a very recent change. It was done for the first time by Elder. Sorry, that was Elders Jeff and Parminder, and also Elder Tess used to believe that. So there's my main proof knocked out. Then the second proof I had, second strongest proof I had, was on July 18, only half of the United States is represented. When that ship of Acts 27 shipwrecks, it's the whole of the United States which is shipwrecked. In other words, the ship is the whole of America, not half of America. So then, I think in the same camp meeting, in France in February, Elder Terry changes that as well. And she says the King of the North is just half of America. And that's overgeneralizing, I know. Because we've said it, she has said it's the Republican Party only. And I think now it's just Trumpism, the Trump part of the Republican Party. Is that right? Is that correct as far as everyone knows? Is that what's being taught then? Like the King of the North.
Yeah, in general, yes.
Good. Okay, so I thought if you're going to change those two things, then I can't defend November 5th anymore. So I thought if I'm not November 5th, I must be July 18th. So I told everyone I'm July 18th. And then after trying to, study it for a presentation, I tried to present it twice. And I found I couldn't defend it, July 18th. It wasn't sustainable. So I stopped teaching July 18th. I had questions which I couldn't answer and still can't today. For example, we started to ask, okay, so for example, I think, so I could be wrong, but I think Elder Terry said November 5th can't be the test. Because Americans weren't forced to vote. Therefore, you're not having the mark of the beast forced on you. And if you think about the 1850 and 1888 model, the mark of the beast is forced on you in those times. But the problem is, we have said for a long time, in our dispensation, the mark of the beast isn't going to be a law. So then I started to think, if it's not going to be a law, how is anything going to be forced on the people even here? And when I started asking around, what could possibly be forced on us in 1 or 2 years or something? And I haven't had an answer. Especially forcing a test on gender. I know it's early days. So far, it all looks like immigration, deportation, etc. But let's wait and see if we're forced to do something based on gender in the future. We may be. If we do get to Daniel 12:1, when the east wind kills the army of Rome, we haven't been forced to do anything. Personally, I'm going to go back to saying, well, November the 5th was the only option. Okay, any questions on that or anything so far?
So it means that you're not fully convinced about July 18.
You want to translate? No, I'm not convinced about July 18. but I think that's okay. I'm going to say it this way, because I don't think Elder Terry is either, is she? Hasn't Elder Terry switched to Curtis's model, or am I wrong? If she says the Sunday law is a period of time, bookended by July 18, and December 17. Is that correct? Or am I wrong?
I think she said that if we want to mark it like that, she's fine with that. That's what yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I mark it now. So I guess the speakers are in one accord. Does that answer your question?
Well, yes, if you, because when you make it a framework, November 5th is in there as well. Yeah.
Okay, by the way, always interrupt to shout out questions. No problem. So the second point, we're now teaching the seventh head, seventh kingdom is just trumpets. Sorry, I just remembered something, so I had to make a note. When I was presenting this, someone asked me a question I couldn't answer. The purpose of the King of the North is to fight the King of the South. King of the South is Russia. And then we used to say the King of the North was the United States. Now we're saying it's just Trumpism. I'll put Trump. Or Trumpism. Okay. So someone said, how come at Panium in 2021, it was Biden who was fighting against Putin at Panium? And still to this day, I haven't had an answer. Does that make sense, or shall I explain?
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay. So I know we've run with this doctrine. I don't think it's correct. Unless you can answer why Biden is the King of the North at Panium. Okay, any thoughts or questions on that?
Yeah, my question is then, what is your position now? Because it seems that you still have questions, like you changed your position, but you still have questions about it. So where are you standing?
So I also agree with Curtis's model. I think he's the one that got it right out of all of us, in other words. because you can answer all these questions by doing this bookending model. So here you only have half of America. That's not the end of the Sunday Law waymark. If you like November 5th, you can say the whole of America is represented there. If you don't like November 5th, ignore it and just say the whole of America is represented. It doesn't change this though. But this third point also fits this model. While I was presenting, someone asked me, how did the King of the North enter into the whole of the glorious land on July 18? So it's the same argument using a different verse. Daniel 11:41. The Sunday Law waymark affects the whole of the glorious land. But so it's not true for July 18. But it could be true here if you like November 5th, or it could be here if you like December 6th. In the same way, the image of the beast.
In the same, sorry?
In the same way, the subject of the image of the beast. I think Elder Terry used to teach July 18th, the image was just set up, ready to go, everyone can see it. If I'm wrong, please shout out, correct me. But I agreed with that fully. But that's not the Sunday law. Because if you think of an image of a beast, an animal, this would just be a lifeless body, but you can all see it. It's not until you breathe life into it that it can start doing stuff. Speaking. Passing laws. I don't know, maybe signing executive orders, I don't know. But there's no life here, so it couldn't be the end of the Sunday laws waymark. When you include these two dates, if you like November 5th, you can say the people gave it life on November 5th. They breathed or voted power into it. If you don't like November 5th, you can say it happened on December 17th. Okay. That makes sense? Any thoughts?
My question is, so maybe to me it seems that all of the questions that you have are being answered because you have a framework that expands through November 5th until December 17th. But do you actually agree that it starts in July, or you could still think that it might not even start there?
You want to translate? I'm okay that it starts there. I guess I don't need to explain because you all understand July 18 so well. You all know why it starts there as well. It's only when you had to choose either or. November the 5th fits all of the things. You don't need to change the King of the North to half. You don't need to move the Mark of the Beast test, etc. Just for the people that aren't here, I just want to go over this. Presley? So we've had a few battles between the King of the North and the King of the South. Ipsus, Heraclea, Raphia and Panium, or more correctly, it would be Asculum and Beneventum. Ipsus, Heraclea, Asculum, Beneventum, and Argos. So this one is Panium. That one's Panium. And red is Republican, isn't it? So who was the president in 2016? Trump. 2018 was Trump. At the Battle of Asculum, Trump was the King of the North. At Beneventum, Biden was the King of the North. Biden fought against Putin at Panium. And then Trump is fighting Putin at home. So that's...
Sorry, what was the last sentence that you said? I'm not sure if I translated correctly.
Trump was fighting, I think I said it wrong. Trump was fighting Putin at Argos. So this is why I think this new doctrine is error. I could be wrong. Maybe someone can explain it to me in the future. Okay.
Sorry, how did Trump fight Putin at Argos?
Well, Trump was the president at the Sunday Law. Only if you do this bookending model.
But he's not president yet. He has no executive power.
Well, he was voted into presidency. But the further back you go, he has even less power or influence over Putin. Trump couldn't call up Putin on July 18. So I'm definitely going to win, so you better listen to me today. But after November 5th, Trump could call up Putin and say, I won, so you better listen to me. So Putin doesn't need to wait until January 2021 for Trump to actually sit in the White House and get a phone call. Trump can call him anytime after November 5th and have the same influence as if he was president. Any thoughts? Can you answer any of these questions, maybe? Okay, so
For me, the only thing that doesn't fit is that in all the previous Weimarks, the presidents were really presidents, like sitting in their office, while at 2024, Trump is not the president, even though he can have that influence, but he doesn't really have the power yet. I translate my question.
So this was only the election, not the, what's it called? Inauguration? So this is just the election. What was 2016?
Yes, that's what I just realized. Yeah, that's the same.
Okay. So we're doing so well for time. I'll just do an extra thing, which I wasn't really planning on doing. So after I stopped teaching July 18, I favored this model, but what I started to teach was the death of the king of the south. And this is a study which I think Elder Terry had already presented, and others, I think. Where the death of the king of the south is a two-stage death. And Elder Tess used to teach that that was the Sunday law was the complete and final death of the king of the south. Then Elder Terry said no. The national Sunday law is just the internal death. Internal death means inside Russia. And that's the death of Navalny. And then at the worldwide Sunday law, the King of the South has an external defeat. External meaning outside of Russia. And that's the end of the Ukraine war.
Sorry, Ukraine war or Ukraine? End of Ukraine?
End of Ukraine-Korean war.
Okay. I said it right, yeah.
Okay. So are you familiar with that study? It's already been to. Any questions on that, or did you? Okay, so I started to teach that. And then I asked, maybe you taught it 6 or 7 times, I don't know. And every single time I asked the entire audience, how is the death of Navalny a defeat for Putin? And I only had 2 answers so far. The first one is, he was the last hope for democracy. And I said, that's definitely a win for Putin. Putin does not want democracy. That's why he killed him. Putin wants to be a dictator forever. So when I put that out there, no one answered that. Second answer I've heard is actually the opposite to the first. And that his widow picked up his banner, his cause. She is gonna, I'll say, defeat Putin internally. How many people are here? Oh, okay. So what's Navalny's name? First name?
Alexei. Alexei.
Good.
Alexei.
And what's his widow's name? First name?
Myslím Julie.
Yulia, yeah. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I researched Yulia Navalny. To see if she is a moving force inside Russia. So Google, and I found out she doesn't even live in Russia. And it suggested, therefore, she doesn't have much influence at all. She doesn't hold any official office anywhere. Not in Russia, not in the UN, etc. So she doesn't have any official power. But maybe she has a great influence among the normal people.
Among which people?
The ordinary people. So I looked at her social media. and she has Instagram and YouTube. And the most amount of followers, I think, are on the YouTube, whichever one. 1 million followers. And you and I know 1 million followers is not much. We don't care if she's got lots of followers in Europe or America. Because the European people and the American people can't threaten Putin. But if all the ordinary people of Russia loved her, that would be different. So if you imagine all 1 million followers live inside Russia, which you know can't be true, and then you take the population of Russia, 1 million followers is still something like 0.02% or something, I don't know, minimal. So I don't think she's picked up the banner and is more influential than Alexei. So my brother lives in Russia, married a Russian woman. And they're both quite political. They watch the news, they have their opinions. So I said, Marcus, do you know what Navalny's first name was?
Do you know what?
Navalny's first name was. And he did, Alexei. And I said, do you know the name of his widow? He said, no, he doesn't even know her name. She is not influential in Russia. So can you ask Anya the same question? And she gave the same answer. So once I thought to myself, okay, maybe there's another internal death for Putin in 2024. And discussing it with people, we couldn't think of anything. So even though I've been teaching this at least half a dozen times, I don't think it's correct either. Because if you don't know what this one is, you can't guarantee that this one is true. In other words, I can tell you for sure that the east wind will kill the army of Rome. And that's because the triple application of prophecy says the east wind first hurts, then kills the army of Rome. And if you say, how did the east wind hurt the army of Rome? I can tell you the event, 9/11. And if you say here, how do you know the end of the Ukraine war is the death of the king of the south? I can't tell you why. I can't guarantee this model is correct. Last point. Someone said, we'll wait and see. Maybe we'll look back and see that Yulia Navalny did bring down Putin. You can't do that. Because it happened in 2024. Sorry, the internal death of Putin had to have happened in 2024. When you compare and contrast it to the King of the North, Trump defeated the glorious land in 2024. And everyone saw it happen in 2024. This isn't something you have to wait and see. You have to already today tell me what it was. Okay. I think that's it from me. Any thoughts or questions?
But I think the way we compared it with the USA, like what was defeated by Trump was, we could say maybe the good part or the democracy. So that's what was defeated by Putin when Navalny died. Navalny didn't die, we believe. He got killed. Yeah, so to me, it's the same like what happened in America. Like the dictator defeated the hope of democracy in their country.
Okay. It's probably the best answer I've heard. Makes some sense.
I think what I say is not heard. I'm not sure if it's heard in the English channel. Let me just check.
Oh, true.
Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah.
If you want to. Mm-hmm.
So you're saying compare and contrast to the King of the North. In 2024, you can't do that. In 2024, Trump defeated the last hope for democracy. Can you say that? Yeah, that works better. And also, at the death of Navalny, Putin defeated the last hope for democracy. The trouble is that's a comparison of two opposite ideologies. So I need some board space. Speed. I just use a different model to compare the logic. King of the North is church over state, King of the South is state over church. So when the church defeats the last hope of the state, then that's a win. But when the church defeats the last hope of the state, that's a loss for Putin. Putin, am I right? Yeah. Putin wants state over church. Confusing myself. Does it make sense? And is it correct? Just that. I'll go through it again for my sake as well.
Say it again.
Shall I do that again for my sake as well?
Okay.
So when church defeats the last hope of the state, that's a win for the King of the North. But if church defeats the last hope of the state is Putin, and that's obviously bad for Putin. So I'm thinking if you do it comes back to who the seventh head is, does it? Democracy. So when you defeat democracy in the glorious land, that's bad. When you defeat democracy in Russia, that's good, because Russia is Putin. In other words, you can't compare the differences.
I'm not sure. Okay, go ahead.
And democracy is considered differently by the King of the North than the King of the South. You compare the similarities, but you have to contrast the differences. What do you think?
I'm not sure if I agree with this.
Okay.
I think democracy is bad for both. Like if democracy wins, King of the North loses. If democracy wins, Putin loses. For both of the dictators, democracy is dangerous. Let me translate.
Okay. But that's because you're thinking the King of the North is Trumpism. And at least standing here today, that can't be true. if the king of the north is America, as we've always taught, then it's the glorious land. Democracy is good for the glorious land. It's what makes it glorious. Does that make sense?
But if glorious land keeps the democracy, king of the north cannot rise.
Yes, and then it becomes bad. Bad. I think you might have something there. It's too complicated for me to do on the spot. Is that something that the movement is aware of, or you just thought it up now or earlier?
It's something that's coming out when you're speaking.
Okay, good. Well done. I just wanted to know why I hadn't heard it before. That's all. Well done. Expect lots of texts from me in the next questions, criticisms. Okay, that's good. We made interesting progress on that. I'm intrigued now. Okay, that's all I have. Any last thoughts or questions on anything?
Já nevím, že se dobře ptám, ale chtěl jsem se zeptat, u krále jihu tam asi nešlo o žádnou demokracii, protože tam žádná nebyla, ne? Byl tam nějaký boj o demokracii?
When we look at the king of the south, there wasn't a democracy. Am I thinking wrong?
No idea. Ask Monica. Say it once more. When you look at the king of the south, you don't see democracy. I'm not sure what that means. Can you elaborate a bit?
No, ty jsi říkal, že vlastně u krále severu, když církev porazí stát, tak je jako vítězství. Myslím, že Aaron říkal, že na straně krále severu, když církev porazí stát, nebo když prostě bude mít převahu, jestli jsem to pochopil, tak porazí, tak je po demokracii. Je to tak?
You were saying that when church defeats the state, the democracy is over?
No. No.
No.
These are two separate models. Different stories. I just wanted to try to show that the king of the north and the king of the south have differences. And I was trying to show you can't compare the differences. I was trying to say if democracy is defeated here, that's bad. You can't just say, therefore, if democracy is defeated here, that's bad. Because as you said, democracy is hated by Putin. Does that make sense? Don't worry if it's confusing. It's new to me as well. I'm a bit confused as well.
Do you understand what I was trying to tell you?
I think so. Go back. What did you say? Can you go back? Can you say it again?
I was saying that democracy is bad for both, for King of the North and King of the South, because if democracy wins, they lose. So
yeah,
for both of them, democracy is bad.
True.
Maybe if you repeat
Yes,
what I
yes.
said, because I'm not heard. If you want to, it's up to you.
So what you're saying is democracy is actually bad for both. Because the King of the North doesn't want democracy. We know the King of the South doesn't. So you're saying it's actually a similarity, not a difference. Therefore, you can compare it. Therefore, when Trump defeated the last hope for democracy, it fits when you compare it to Russia. When Putin defeated the last hope for democracy. Is that correct, Monica?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, because you know when you explain something yourself, you understand it more. So that now makes more sense to me. I think it sounds really good. We'll have to investigate. So if that's correct, then the conclusion is I've changed my mind again. And I would be thinking the end of the Ukraine war is Daniel 12. Of course, I would be really convinced. I would only really be convinced when the east wind kills the army. And I always think waymarks are all contained within 1 year. So then you should have Ukraine war and east wind in the same year. And that would be Daniel 12. Anything else?
I was hoping you were going to do with us the 3 lines that I saw you doing, I think for PIP ministry. You know which 3 lines I mean?
Pagan Rome, Paper Rome, Modern Rome. I can do. Elder Terry did that a long time ago. Shall I?
If you think you still have time, I'm not sure. When did we start?
I can do it quick.